And boom, according to that, I am live. Welcome. My name is Hiko Simon. This is Tokyo Tonight. It is the usual time. I've just realized I've got cords tangled here, which could lead to a technical issue. My mic appears to be working. I hope the levels are okay. I hope you are all good. It's great to see so many people already in the chat. Thanks for joining me last week. It was actually really cool. We did, of course, the 2.5 Yashis, and then after that, I did the experimental live stream, which went so well that yeah, I've decided to sort of customize my setup to do an after party. What always happens when I do those sort of DJ live streaming things is I get hit with copyright claims after, but because I don't monetize the videos, it's okay. But unfortunately, the nice people of the Russian Federation apparently get blocked because of the copyright, possibly my outrageous opinions, but more probably the copyrighted music. Apparently, it causes it to get geo-blocked in some regions. Not that I really care, but partly because of that, and partly because the music's kind of cool. So you know, I really enjoy doing that. So what I'm going to do after the stream today is I have set up a second stream for 11:30. But basically, whenever this finishes, the after party will be on the other stream, which will just be music. And I'll keep the music separate from this just so that I don't get music strikes against the news feed. But it was really cool having everyone in last week. And actually, everyone's suggestions and stuff live like made it really good. And it actually made me go, for example, there were requests last week for me to go and get Run the Jewels and some Word, which I should already have, but I didn't have. So I downloaded a whole bunch of that, and I've been playing with that. So I can take requests and stuff like that, and it's really fun. So there will be an after show, which I've already set up the link for. You can probably see on my YouTube page or whatever. I'll post the link in here afterwards. But I'll keep this news, and we'll see how we go. It's been another sort of relatively kind of busy week for me work-wise, and quiet week, I think, news-wise for Japan. I mean, there are some big things, which I guess we'll get into talking about. And which I've got in the title there. But just great to see so many people rocking in from all over the world. Once again, we've got Yoni, our man from Finland, in here first at 9:42, so 50 minutes before the stream started. Good to see you in there. Shubas, our man from Panama, made it. Good to see you. DJ Sunny Side Up, kind of third, but claiming second because Shubas didn't say second, so I guess you get to claim second first, if that makes sense. But yeah, good to see DJ Sunny Side Up. Hope you hang around for the after show, and yeah, if you can make it. Features about to air, indeed. Hoping that I haven't, yeah, sometimes I get paranoid with this because I can't see all my audio levels and everything. I get paranoid about whether my audio is on the right level or if my mic is even working. It's one thing about StreamYard. I really do like the interface of StreamYard. Oh, you know what? I'm just going to try to ease the pressure off this so that it doesn't screw up. But there we go. Yeah, sometimes trying to fix something breaks it. But anyway, looks like we're all good there. Mage Goes X, long time no sort of live comment. Good to see you, Mage Goes X. Don't forget that thumbs up. Give me that sweet dopamine injection. Good point. I mean, it is pretty much, I say that I do it just for the likes, but it's pretty much this small little like drug hits, I suppose. Yeah, it's a good way of putting it. So thank you for the like. So I must admit, I can, oh, that's right, I can come over to this other window and see we've got 15 concurrent viewers and 6 likes. So do remember to like. It is, remember these videos are not monetized. You shouldn't be seeing ads. If you do, they're not my fault. It's not monetized. So I do that to make it easy as possible to watch. I do appreciate if you like to like. Lara's back. Good to see you, Lara. And thank you for joining the stream. We've got BTC Chiba. Yahoo, right back at you. We've got Quint Ranked. Good to see you. Shubas, glad to see that you got your coffee ready. As always, good to see you there. Kubras Tenshi, our man from Germany. Good to see you. Coffee Kampai Shubas. And yeah, we've got Abel Rosario. Long time no see, man. After party, indeed. After party. Boom. Yeah, very happy to have you and Hilara as well, and everybody. It was a really good vibe last week, by the way. The after show, it was so good. I'm definitely keeping it. Good afternoon, Athens time, our man from Greece, Black Tengu. You made it. Good to see you. We've got 270 AJ. Oh yeah, that's right. Of course, last week I had the beard. I shaved the beard. You notice? I'm glad that somebody noticed. Yes, I look 20 years younger now. I don't know if I look 20 years younger, but yeah. The beard was cool. I loved how full it grew, but it was quite like old father Father Christmassy a little bit. It was a bit white for me, but yeah. People saying no, don't fix the things. They've seen this pattern before. They know how it ends. Probably, yes, wise advice there from Yoni. Thank you. Project X01. Good to see you in the chat, Project X01. Thank you for saying hello. And thank you for everybody who made it. Jason Statham vibes are off. Uh, they're off. So does that mean I don't have Jason Statham vibes? I don't know. I'm getting old, I guess. We've got 8 likes anyway, so I'm liking that. Um, but yeah, when the beard was kind of like trimmed but not fully shaved, I must admit I had that bit of that kind of thing going on. But yeah. Anyway, good to see everybody joining. If you haven't said hello yet, just say hello. It's just nice to say hello, and I will of course be highlighting comments as we go along. But yeah, let's dive into the topics. Like I say, there will be an after party. You're all invited. But in the meantime, let's just jump into it. So boom, we've got, what have we got first? So we've got the highlights for the link. I didn't know that the Chunichi Dragons, who apparently actually basically borrowed the image and the fonts and everything of the Dodgers, apparently in 2021, they used the slogan as an official slogan. They had "Grab the D." I don't know, that sounds like kind of a gender reverse Trump kind of campaign slogan. I don't really understand "Grab the D" at all. I don't know. That sounds like the beginning of an HR claim to me, but apparently that's what the Chunichi Dragons baseball team was using. I mean, even as defense, it doesn't really make sense, but what can we do? Buenos tacos. I don't know what that means, but Shubas, you're from Panama, so I'll trust it must be real. Sorry to hear things have been tough with you, man. Kerberos Tenshi, I hope that you are keeping up anyway, but yeah, sorry to hear that. Speaking of people having a tough time, the LDP, for legitimate reasons in the case of the LDP, of course, hitting their lowest polling score ever since polling started. The previous low of 15.1% in 2009, just before they got wiped out by the Hatoyama administration, they're down to 14.6% support, which sounds terrible until then you remember that still is like three and a half times more support than the next opposition party. So basically, people in Japan all going in with none of the above. But yeah, I think maybe Buenos Tacos. I don't really know. Atomic Tom, good to see you as always there in the chat. So yeah, they're not doing well. Mainly, this is almost entirely because of let's go back to Houston. Entirely because of the slush money scandal, which I'll come to in a moment. But basically, all of these fundraising parties that the LDP was doing, they were under declaring the amount of money collected and pocketing as illegal personal donations. The politicians, as well as their campaign teams, were pocketing the extra money and using it either personally or for campaigning. But either way, it's clearly breaking the election funding laws. And for pretty large amounts of money, well, at least by Japanese standards, generally in the hundreds of thousands of dollars US. So a lot of people are facing going to jail. And the fact that this was just part of the way that the LDP factions worked, including Kishida's own faction, which he was in charge of, just shows that a lot of these people are going to be either arrested. Some have already been arrested. Some are certainly going to be criminally charged. So yeah, we're going to find out how that goes. Aaron, hope you're staying warm there in Indiana. Good morning to you. I'm actually surprised you don't just like hibernate in that part of the country. But yeah, I hope you're doing well. Glad that you can make it. Aaron is here indeed. Drink check. What is everyone drinking? Asks DJ Sunnyside Up. I will check that in. We've got a cold brew cafe latte from Kerberos Tenshi. I actually had a bottle of water, which, where did I put that? I put that away. So hopefully I don't need water while I'm doing this. Yeah, the Noto, so the Ishikawa Prefecture Peninsula earthquake. There's been a bit of news going on with that, which I'm glad to hear that you're on hibernation. Yeah, stay warm there. We've also got Stormtrooper 109. Good morning from Texas. Wow, nice to have a Stormtrooper from Texas there. Welcome to the chat. We've got water, hot rooibos tea. What else we got here for drinks? Always nice to see that. Wow, a watermelon. Oh, watermelon monster. Yeah, I used to drink monsters and I'd get like anxiety after I had them. Like, I don't know, it's kind of funny. They've all basically got the same like crap in them, all that sort of caffeine and sugar and all that sort of stuff, and guarana or whatever. But it's kind of funny with each one of those drinks, I have different sort of reactions, like Red Bulls and Monsters. I like the taste of Monster, but I've never tried the watermelon one because I gave up on it because I would get like I'd feel like I was about to have a panic attack every time I drank a Monster. I don't think there's anything good for them. I hope it's the start of the day for you, Atomic Tom, and you're not drinking those at night. This is actually interesting. Let's check out the drinks. Abel Rosario is having a strong zero Mikan. You know what? I've had a strong zero once as well, and like half of thing, and it was like causing my mouth to like not move properly. It was like having anesthetic. Strong zero again too. I hardly drink anymore actually. I don't not drink, but I don't like drink for the sake of drinking. But that's some strong stuff, Abel. Tea and crumpets. Well, very English there in Athens. Glad to see we've got grapefruit chuhai from Kochi. Nice. Stormtrooper 109 is having a coffee. Kirin Heartland BTC Chiba. Whoa, Shubus. And I hope that you're not actually in Edmonton. And if you are, it's funny. I knew someone in Seattle who was married to someone from Edmonton. So I think they have the Oilers, right? The ice hockey team. I think that's pretty much the only thing you can do in a place minus 60 degrees Celsius. I can't even comprehend. Cold water, says Yoni. Anxiety from missing coffee. Well, there you go. I had to switch to coffee. The grapefruit one is Aaron's fave. Okay, I'm gonna focus on topics, but the side topics are actually sometimes more interesting than the real live chat, even to myself. That's a problem. So Ishikawa Prefecture, of course, we had this earthquake, I think 2 weeks ago now, and it's a remote part of Japan. The part that was particularly affected was the Noto Peninsula, which sticks out from Ishikawa Prefecture, sort of pointing towards Korea. And there's trying not to look at the chat. I'm focused. Yeah, so of course, very large earthquake. Currently, it's about 250 people killed, and a lot of those are now, because it's such a remote part of Japan, and it's a peninsula, kind of a mountainous peninsula with lots of isolated small towns, which have been completely cut off by these sort of landslides. So even flying in or whatever is kind of hard, even going in from the ocean. A lot of towns have been cut off, and even when they could reach those towns, it was only like helicopter sort of supply drops and stuff like that. So in a lot of those towns, what apparently has been happening is, like most of rural Japan, those towns are full of elderly people. And those elderly people, unfortunately, when houses have collapsed on top of them, there's just been no way to get rescue teams to help sort of get them out of the collapsed houses. So while the initial reaction to the earthquake was, well, there's a surprisingly small number of collapsed houses because Japan has such great building standards and so on. Well, truth is, though, in rural parts, it's not quite that much of a case. And the death toll, unfortunately, is now going up from people who have been trapped under their houses. So pretty awful sort of a thing there. Also, freezing cold out that part of Japan, and they've been having snow and so on. So yeah, and a lot of people now commenting that the Japanese government, has been, everyone would have expected that the Japanese government would have figured out some way to get more people in to sort of help with the recovery and rescue and so on more quickly. But a lot of the places there have sort of been left to fend more on their own than they were expecting, not zero. But Japan, it still reflects, it's kind of scary. If there is a big earthquake, really the best thing to probably do is to figure out, the best way to go somewhere else. It looks like a lot of people are, struggling. They're getting by in under-equipped sort of evacuation centers and so on. Another thing apparently that's I've got another link here for Ishikawa is a beautiful part of Japan. It really is. It's like mountains and ocean, particularly in summertime, but even in winter, it's got all this. Typically, it's got deep snow, which it doesn't have right now. But a lot of people have been canceling their planned trips to Ishikawa Prefecture, and the Ishikawa Prefecture governor has been putting out messages on social media saying, please don't cancel your trips to Ishikawa Prefecture, because they actually, all the businesses in the economy there really needs the support of tourists at the moment. So they're actually saying, I don't know that tourism to the Noto Peninsula is even possible at the moment, but to other parts of Ishikawa Prefecture, including areas that are affected, they're saying, please come. So it's worth paying attention to that. Kind of interesting here as well, and this is the sort of stuff you sort of expect to see in Japan, and it's kind of disappointing. But apparently the first few days, some people were at a school with an evacuation center. There were 3 vending machines, so some people broke open the vending machines to hand out the drinks in them. The vending machines companies are now basically filing lawsuits for damaging. They're filing damages claims against the schools that broke into their vending machines. Some people commenting as well in response to this, well, yeah, they could have done it without completely destroying the machines, surely, or they could have called up and tried to get permission to open them. But at the same time, does a vending machine have to be suing the school of evacuees? It's not like it was a normal case of vandalism. So yeah. Yoni, the initial narrative was that new buildings do, and I think it's true that buildings over 4 stories built after 1981, and it might be all buildings after 1981 have to adhere to these tougher standards. And it was notable in Kanazawa and some of the bigger towns that that yeah oh, trying to remember the names. Suzuki was the one that was hit by was the more isolated town that was hit by the tsunami, but there was another town in Noto Peninsula, the bigger one, which I'm trying to remember, starts with U. In that town, the big buildings, all the buildings that you would have expected to survive, did survive. The buildings that in that town notably collapsed were ones that were pre-1981, so it did seem to show up the building standards were pretty good. And it's another thing, Japan, for all these countries that have earthquakes and, buildings collapsing and stuff like that. And, there are lessons that you can learn from Japan on this, even though, of course, it's not perfect. But yeah. So I don't know if all the new buildings withstood, but it looks like they stood up pretty well. Of course, the ones that didn't stand up in places like Suzu were hit by tsunamis and so on as well. So yeah. Oh, Michael Gillen Peckett, good to have you there in the chat. As a philosophy lecturer, Ishikawa is one of your favorite places. Kanazawa is the birthplace of Nishida Kitaro, often called the father of Japanese philosophy. I did not know that. Oof, Mr. Cordy Chip, you almost missed the show. Well, I'm glad that you could make it. So yeah. And again, people there saying Noto is a fantastic tourist destination. And yeah, it's exactly the whole area around Kanazawa is just famous for being a place that people go to. And just for the nature and the towns, and it's pretty well connected with bullet trains and so on as well. So definitely worth doing that. 1981 indeed is when they updated the building standards. If you're looking for an apartment in Japan, it's worth paying attention. If it's old, you'll get a big discount for older buildings, but there'll be a massive jump. There'll be a massive drop in rent value for anything pre-1981, which might look like a bargain, and you might think it's Japanese prefer newer buildings, but it is actually quite often to do with the earthquake standards, and that is a legit thing. Most parts of Japan, there's no real seismic. Someone posted a comment on Twitter saying, why do they should relocate these people to more seismically safe parts of Japan. And I said, where is seismically safe in Japan? And they said Okinawa and some parts of Hokkaido. And that made me curious. And I Googled, when did Okinawa last have a large earthquake? And 80 years ago, 1910, it had a magnitude 8.5 earthquake. So, Tokyo goes on something like a 75-year cycle. Most parts of Japan, even if they don't have earthquakes all the time, most parts of Japan do. There's no really seismically safe part of Japan. You should expect that an earthquake is going to happen and plan for that. So from that perspective, even though pre-1981 buildings are cheaper, I would not. You can still get cheap enough buildings from older, from ones like in the 80s and 90s, but I wouldn't go for pre-1981 indeed. Thanks for the reference there. Check out Inquiry into the Good or Zen no Kenkyu by Nishida, written in the 1900s. Good to know. Also, Stormtrooper 109, good to have you in there. Yes, indeed. Thank you. Glad you've been watching the show. Nice of you to drop it and leave a comment. Do appreciate that. So, yeah, what else have we got going on? Facebook is focusing on AI, which seems like a smarter investment. Although there again, I don't know if I was more relieved with Facebook just focusing all of its energy on the metaverse, which I don't care about, or on AI, which I think might actually have a legitimate thing going. So it seems smarter anyway if I was investing. Not that I invest in Facebook, but there you go. A brief thing they're talking about the new forms of sort of climate denial, how people like to make channels saying, basically rather than aiming at climate science. I mean, people do target climate science and say, oh, it's just natural cycles, because they want to feel better by making themselves feel smarter than the scientists who do nothing but research climate for a living by saying that, I read in a science book once that the solar cycles and the Earth, on average, has actually been much hotter throughout history than it is now. And this is it just returning to normal. And these are all part of solar cycles and stuff. You hear something in a documentary and you think, well, that negates the actual problems that humans are causing. The latest one is to take the angle on that to sort of attack renewable energy as being worthwhile. But again, it's just kind of silly. And there's a lot of people who like to go around who like to feel smart by basically, kind of attacking people who actually scientifically aggregate data, and they wanted to just sort of be lazy for 5 minutes of Wikipedia research. And it's kind of annoying, but it's a big thing. I think it's a human trait. It's why I don't have a lot of faith that we can actually address climate change, because everybody wants to be sort of contrarian by nature, I think. So yeah, that's a thing. One thing that happened the other night, it was excellent to see Japan became the 5th country ever to soft land on the moon. The problem is it may have soft landed upside down. And there's a question, does that count if it soft lands upside down? It seems like it did. The problem is the probe, it was sending telemetry, and it did actually land on the surface and didn't get destroyed. It wasn't a hard landing. The problem is that apparently where it was landing on the edge, it was actually landing like on a 10-degree slope of a crater, which they were like, it was supposed to be the most accurate moon landing in history within a 100-meter radius. They're still validating that. But the whole point was it was supposed to be on a slope leaning towards the east, because the idea was it would just be catching the start of a lunar day starting, which takes, what, half a month for it to go across the horizon. So they wanted to point these solar panels east, and the fact that the solar panels have not been collecting any electricity implies one of three things. It implies either the solar panels are just broken and don't work. It implies that it might have landed upside down and they're face down, in which case it's only going to last, the slim probe is only going to last for as long as there is electricity in the batteries of the probe, which is apparently like a day or so. Or it landed facing west, the wrong direction, which is good news, because that means if the sun moves over, it will charge up and that will be able to do more of its mission. There are two cool, super cool little probes which it shot out just before it landed. One that looks like a Sony sort of a toy that walks around on the surface. So, those should be deployed and working. So there should still be some pretty cool science and photos and everything to come from this. But in any case, it's still kind of cool to see Japan. I like the fact that Japan always takes a sort of a more discreet approach. It's a relatively low cost, really simple, low weight. And yeah, they've gone for sort of subtle and accurate. So it is cool, but of course, it's a shame. Space is hard, as we found out with the US moon lander as well, the Peregrine lander as well, which of course got shot back into Earth the other day. But yeah, still really cool. I enjoyed watching that live, although there weren't video images. It was all just following telemetry, but it was exciting to follow. It was pretty good to see history there. Project X01. You've heard that there are vending machines that, in the case of a major earthquake or typhoon, the contents can be used for free as emergency supplies. Do I know anything about that? Well, according to this company, they cannot be used for free, or maybe they can. I don't know that they are specific. It's possible that I've never heard of them, but it's possible that there are vending machines which get deployed in the case of emergencies. I mean, it would make sense to have like vending machine for like portable toilets and stuff like that to issue the boxes or the plastic bags. It also would make sense for vending machine companies to just make the vending machines free. So it's possible, Project X01, but I've never heard of it. So there you go. Shubis, I'm kind of with you. The J Vlog, glad that you can make it. Indeed, the grand solar maximum or something. Yes, indeed. It is interesting that apparently, the Earth has been 45 degrees average temperature for a long time, but doesn't still change the fact that the rate of change and the elements of change happening right now are happening there because of us. But there you go. Salutations indeed. Believe in yourself. Glad that you can make it. Everybody doing little 07 salutes to each other. Does this mean that the prediction of global cooling you remember from the 80s also isn't going to happen? Who knows? But the clear consensus, there's no ambiguity in climate scientists, and or in government policy makers or anything. It's just pure lobby-driven politics. That's the only thing contradicting the consensus on global science, on climate science. And anyone who claims to be a scientist saying otherwise isn't a scientist. The problem is that just the problems take too long time scales. I mean, that's it, and people just don't have the attention spans to be able to fix an obvious problem. But there you go. Wingstar, good to see you. Yeah, and good to see lots more people in here. Slim failed successfully. I think that's kind of one way of putting it. It certainly did land anyway, but yeah, it makes you think with everything coming, with all the moon stuff coming up, which I'm super excited about, including all these cool rockets. It does make me think, yeah, are we okay? Because like a pretty high percentage of things there sort of fail. No, the data, like I say, the consensus of data scientists is clear, and it's been clear since the 1990s. But sure, there's people who claim to be scientists who cherry pick whatever data. But yeah, better global cooling than global warming. Well, both are a bad thing. We've had many ice ages, and those have been terrible in history as well. But it seems mini ice ages, which still could happen anytime. You could have a big volcanic eruption, and we could have another mini ice age, and those are terrible as well, and that would be global cooling. Everything's just kind of bad. But there you go. Global loving. There we go, Wingstar. That's a good way to pull it all together while I exit and continue on the other topics. So yeah, Zuckerberg. Let's avoid Zuckerberg as well to keep it good. Yeah, one really cool thing, again, just like with Ukraine, Starlink is In fact, I saw another article that Starlink is being widely used in isolated towns in Noto Peninsula. And again, another place where when lines get cut, phone lines, water lines, gas lines, everything, these towns are super isolated on this peninsula. And yet dropping Starlink terminals means that they still can have, high-speed communications and broadband internet. And it really shows the utility for a place like Japan, for an island country like Japan. It's almost like this sort of satellite technology, now that it's here and there's more versions of it coming. Right now, Starlink is the only show in town, but I think there's 2 other satellite companies already preparing. And I don't know, the Japanese government should either be looking at launching their own or, paying a ton of money and subsidizing having these things all on remote islands and disaster areas and so on for stuff like this. There are solutions like SoftBank, for example, has these hot air balloons which fly over disaster areas to offer cell coverage and so on. But now you can even do text messages directly to Starlink satellites 500 kilometers away in orbit. There's been tests that have shown that, regular phones, they can actually, of course, it's literally just text messages. You can't do like a phone call, but it's literally like using a cell tower 500 kilometers away, and they can get regular phones to work directly without relaying. So the technology of the sort of satellite communications, there's cons. As a child astronomy, lover myself, hearing how these thousands of satellites now going around for Starlink and for these other constellations, which are going to happen, are basically going to make it impossible to take photos of the stars from Earth. There are downsides. But there's a lot of upsides as well. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. Winks wins the day with the comment. Yeah, the consensus was agreed on in 1997. I based my whole final 2 years of law school and a 4-year job on that consensus. There's a lot of smart asses, but there's nothing serious to contradict it. But I'm not gonna debate it here because I'm not a climate scientist. But the point is, the people who you pay to go and get the actual data, who actually take care and aren't being funded by by fossil lobbyists and so on. The consensus was reached a long time ago, and it's actually exceeding what's happening is exceeding the models that they predicted back in the 1990s of the worst case scenarios. So we should all be very alarmed. It should be the #1 policy priority, but again, people just can't stick to long-term problems. So yeah. Anyway, the stuff with the probe, it's a shame that it looks like it might not last very long, but still pretty cool that we did it. I'm hoping, I don't know, lunar tourism might not be possible within my lifetime, but it'll be pretty close, I think. Anyway. So yeah, Japan's introduced a new online slander rule where they're going to make it basically mandatory that if anyone says anything bad about anyone else, internet companies like Twitter, for example, and YouTube are going to they're going to be obligated to delete their slanderous content right away. So they're basically going to make companies punishable for hosting slanderous content. The problem being that typically slander is dealt with under defamation laws, and defamation laws in most countries, and I think including Japan, fundamentally there is a defense against defamation or slander, which is that it's true or that you reasonably believe that it's true. Again, depending on the country. But the point is, when internet companies are told that you will be penalized for hosting anyone bad-mouthing anyone else, and you have to respond immediately to deletion orders, what do you do for the tabloid magazines or whatever, and including their social media accounts or their web pages or whatever? Are their hosts going to have to take them down, or are their social media accounts going to be taken down whenever they publish a controversial story that might be slanderous, but it might be true? But and what's this going to do for journalism if you can get sued for saying anything bad about anyone, even if it's true, or you can have the content taken down? So yeah, these new sort of laws, I kind of get on the one hand that online slander is a problem and the government wants to crack down on it and give more powerful tools to sort of fight it. But at the same time, I don't know how media is going to work with the idea that internet hosts are going to be facing penalties for not deleting, for example, news content which someone says is defamation against them, because IT companies can't be judges. They're not, you can go decide that at trial, but the idea that they have to decide quickly and that they face liability when they don't know what the truth is kind of interesting and challenging to me. But yeah, that's a thing that is happening. Couldn't rank it. No, it's about it, but it's about a body of science to figure out what constitutes a sufficient body of certainty to make good policy, and that was arrived at a long time ago. But yeah, what else we got here? We got Sadiq. You made it. Sadiq Hakanguris, our man from Florida. Good to see you there in the chat. Goodbye, free speech indeed. Isn't slander something that isn't true? Yes, well, but this is the point, Mr. Cordychep. So indeed, if it is actually true slander, well, but you know what? Yes, yes. I think a definition of slander is that it has to be false. You can slander somebody with something that's true. I mean, again, the goal of slander is to cause people to think less of somebody else. Well, that's what defamation is. And you can say something to make someone think less of somebody else based on something that's true. But the point is, you won't be liable if it's true. So it's a defense against it. It doesn't mean that it's not necessarily slander or defamation if it's true. But yeah, the general implication of the term slander is that it's a false, reputation destroying kind of a statement. And yeah, for that, and the point is, the only counter to it is that it's not slander if it's true. And who knows, how does Twitter know whether it's true or not when someone claims to delete it? So there you go. Exactly, Abel. That's exactly how you do it. And be careful, because you might we might end up in the situation you see in some countries where people get arrested for holding up blank pieces of paper. But that's kind of the direction of this. So apparently in Canada, Facebook's AI marks everything your friends share as news as blocked. Oh, I've heard about that. There's a big problem with the news stuff over there. No more negative restaurant reviews, says Mathology. Good to see you in the chat, by the way, Mathology. So there you go. So here's the thing, Aaron. I'm not giving legal advice on this side because I'm only qualified in New Zealand. But I could say that if you had seen all the court trial videos and you had formed your own opinion based on her behavior on those videos, then that could be considered a reasonable belief that it's true. So, and based on that, you might have a defense to it, that it's based on your judgment, based on what you saw, and a reasonable person might come to the same conclusion. Then it's okay, at least in New Zealand. I don't know if it's okay in Japan, but so yeah, you could say that, Aaron. Although I don't want to get I can't get demonetized. I demonetize myself. So go ahead, say it all that you like. Yes, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to be deleted. Demonetized is fine. I don't give a crap, but don't get me deleted anyway. So there you go. Yeah, an American passenger went crazy on an ANA flight, and apparently thought that one of the flight attendants was the entree for the in-flight meal. Apparently attacked and bit someone, so was flown back to Japan and has been arrested back in Japan, returned to Haneda. Apparently this was the Haneda to Seattle flight, which is the flight. I always fly Delta, and I've never thought I would say that, oh, I'm glad I fly Delta. But in this case, I am. I know a guy actually who whoa, wrong place. Boom. I I know a guy who like refuses to fly Delta. He pays extra out of his own pocket. The company will pay for a Delta flight, and he pays the extra to fly ANA to Seattle every time. I don't care. I fly Delta, but I never thought that it was better flying Delta. But apparently, the American passengers on ANA may or may not mistake you for the in-flight meal. So he's been returned to Japan. There's been I have not covered the story of the American serviceman who had a road crash after climbing Mount Fuji. He was driving back from Mount Fuji and apparently got drowsy at the wheel. He blames altitude sickness for it, but he ended up driving on the wrong side of the road and did a crash leading to death, which is manslaughter in America, and is negligent driving leading to death in Japan, and was sentenced to like 2 years jail. And his family and supporters did a campaign for the U.S. government to get him released to U.S. custody, which they were successful. A lot of people pointing out, of all the things to get the US government to fight Japan over, prosecuting someone for negligent driving, causing 2 people to die, and treating that like giving him a hero's welcome back is kind of bad taste. And in the process of that, saying that the Japanese justice system has all of these problems, when it's pretty commensurate, actually. Saying that the penalties for driving and killing someone in Japan are slightly harsher here than in America, but they're pretty much the same. So he's kind of being welcomed back as a hero. I don't know if the person who bit the flight attendant on the ANA flight is going to be welcomed back to America, or America's going to fight Japan to rescue their flight attendant biter. But there you go. Fly Delta. Yeah. Of all of the after the Ishikawa earthquake, there was a nuclear power plant nearby that the former Prime Minister Hatoyama thought it'd be a really good idea to say, hey, the nuclear power plant's on fire, everybody, which it wasn't. But apparently it has had other problems since then. A diesel backup generator is broken down, and since it's broken down, and that's a safety mechanism, they've shut down the whole nuclear reactor. So there have been problems there, but not the exact problems that the former prime minister was spreading. They call former PM Hatoyama the space alien, and I think that's being pretty harsh on space aliens myself. Oizumi, one of my favorite towns in Gunma, it's actually like I think majority Brazilian, or at least it was back in the early 2000s. They've been saying that, apart, on top of not being able to hire enough government workers, they need to be able to hire foreign, if they're qualified and can do the job, they want to be able to hire non-citizens. For the Japanese civil service, you have to be a Japanese citizen to work for the civil service, including being in the military or government work or whatever. And they're saying, hey, if we can't hire enough people, and we need people who speak Portuguese and so on. So yeah, they're sort of lobbying. The governor of Gunma is lobbying for an exception to allow them to hire non-citizens, which to me, I mean, is a no-brainer. Certainly, when you deal with immigration in New Zealand or other countries, whatever, a lot of the staff, as I understand, you don't have to be a New Zealand citizen. Although also New Zealand citizenship is super easy to give. I think they hand it out in cereal boxes. But yeah, apart from the fact it's easy to get, you don't have to be a citizen. You don't even have to be a citizen to vote in New Zealand. And if you're like me, you can be a citizen and lose the right to vote. So there you go. There's the thing I was just talking before about Starlink being used in Noto Peninsula, which is good to see. A bite-sized flight attendant. Yes, indeed. Cobra Senshi, we've got, you remember the briefings that you got when you were checked in for Anna? Some stupid mistakes had happened, like a passenger that was on the flight from Tokyo to LAX instead of the Delta flight. I see. So a passenger got on the wrong plane. That sounds like a passenger who suddenly realized the terrible mistake that they had made with choosing airlines. But there you go. Yeah. So carrying on anyway. Yeah, this was interesting. Okay. This is one where if Victor was here, we'd probably make the whole show about this. This was from the Sankei News, although it got retweeted by the Itai News, by the Nichan aggregator, because everyone's commenting on it. Apparently, there are an increasing number of men in their 30s in Japan who do not know how to make babies. And actually, when they get married and they decide to, have children, the first thing they do before even trying is they go and seek fertility treatment help. And they claim there are an increasing number of men in their 30s who claim to have never, how do I put this? Yeah, there's a kanji there that if you can read it, they've never serviced themselves. They've never bashed the bishop. They've never done the five knuckle shuffle. And again, the internet, the 2chan comments were, well, clearly that doesn't apply to any of you. The conversations in the online chat were sort of there. I mean, again, in a country, like I say, I'm sure in a country of 120 million people, it's possible that the number of people who have never gone through their lives and never masturbated once is possibly more than 0, but I'm pretty sure it would be less than 10. There were news stories about this in Singapore back years ago. But yeah, apparently it's like the Sankei Shimbun, one of the major newspapers in Japan, has a news story saying that there's this term that women are increasingly carnivorous and sort of, proactive with men, and Japanese men are increasingly herbivorous, where they don't chase women anymore. They don't act like meat-eating men anymore. Which I don't know. Well, probably the definition of meat-eating men that they're thinking about is probably a good thing that they're eating a few more vegetables. But they've now gone to these men don't even eat vegetables is the thing, which I guess this is why this is in Sankei, which is right-wing media. They're sort of, talking about how Japan's, going to hell in a handbasket or whatever. But yeah, saying that these guys are so, they're not even herbivores. They haven't even masturbated before. Well, where do you even get the data for that? And is that really, I mean, geez, it seems like only 6 months ago that the government was worried people weren't drinking enough beer. So yeah, there you go. That is the comment section. Let's see the comment section. The comment section for people who have not wanked before. Clearly that doesn't apply to any of you. So yeah, people are basically, oh my, the top comment there, apart from the fact that this site's always surrounded by stuff for that purpose. The first one is saying, clearly that doesn't apply to anyone in this thread. The second person said, when I was in high school, I would go at least 5 times a day, and various other things. It's the Japanese internet and it's anonymous. So honestly, I'm not going to look any more at it, but the comments are hilarious. Look at it at your own risk. Photosynthesizer. So yeah, saying ladies are becoming more aggressive, even the way that they speak. Well, that's something I think there's been a trend of that going back, for decades that sort of has been a perceived trend. I don't know how true that is, but there is certainly the trend of increasing asexuals, just people who aren't interested in sex at all, male and female, and that being okay, and people being okay with their like identifying as that and being more open about that. I think those people have always sort of been around. It's just something that sort of is being more, people are more out about that now. But I don't know. The Sankei Shimbun like publishing that guys aren't pleasuring themselves enough. I really question how much news there is in Japan to report. Uh, so it's a 50 yes, everybody rushing to buy Delta tickets to Japan. I can see. Uh, get the, who knows? Who knows? Moving on. Yeah. Apparently, I talked before about this Horizon system. It's great because it was apparently this Netflix special or this documentary series in Japan about how this Fujitsu accounting system that was used by the British Post Office had all these bugs that made the account made it look like people were skimming the tills in all of these post post office branches. And even though they knew that there was a bug that was causing it, they denied that there were any bugs. And as a result, hundreds of people, 700 people or something, went to jail, and some people committed suicide. And this is all sort of coming to light now. And the internet aggregator site, people are reacting to it and are talking about how, yeah, people don't expect much from Fujitsu or NEC or whatever, like in terms of quality of systems over here. And people talking about the systems that they use and the sort of crappy hardware that Fujitsu puts out. So people generally not surprised. The big four SIs in Japan have a stranglehold on IT here and are not known for good quality necessarily. Although that said, I've worked actually for Fujitsu. But it is pretty awful. And, of course, the global Japanese and the European heads of Fujitsu have come out and, I think admitted that, hey, we want to, do what we can to try to make things right. And this was our fault and so on. So I think doing the right thing as much as they can in the circumstances, but still, yeah. Mr. Cordychet, what can I say? It's been, maybe that should have been the title of the show. Who knows? There must be a correlation, indeed. Uh, maybe we need to put all the climate scientists onto that. So yeah, indeed, the governor here is saying, please go and visit tourist locations in Ishikawa after the Noto earthquake. Businesses there need your support, so please go and do that, is what they're saying. A lot of people canceling their trips because they don't want to make a trouble for anything there. This is one of the cool robots that just landed on the surface of the moon that hopefully we should be getting cool little photos from, which I'm very much looking forward to seeing. Yeah, made by Takara Tomy, made by a toy maker, but more or less it was just to demonstrate that they can land precisely like on a crater rim, on a slope or whatever. So it is super cool, but I want to see the photos from that thing. It looks super cool. So hopefully they get that working, but we'll find out how finished it is. What else have we got here? Yeah, Rochelle Kopp posting something I found interesting, just how some research showing that the gender pay gap in Japan, women get paid less than men. And one of the reasons is that it's expected that men go off and do tanshin funin, which is where they go and work in some rural part of Japan for for a year or two, leaving the family behind. And that sort of expectation, particularly where people are married and they have kids and so on, it's part of life. When I went off to Seattle, I was asked, how many years are you going for? With the hope that I was going for a number of years. But that is kind of normal in Japan, that the husbands will go off and sort of say goodbye to their families for a few years and leave the mothers behind. And so when you've got women trying to come up, and particularly when they're married and they have families, but other things as well, women have never been offered the tanshin funin thing, and for various societal expectation reasons, they don't do it. So, but yet that's a path needed for promotion in a lot of big traditional Japanese companies. So there's a interesting thing they're talking about, the role of these sort of transfers and how they circulate people within companies as to ways that Japanese, women again end up with less pay in Japan. Michael Peckett, your sister-in-law's husband manages the post office for an entire prefecture. He's wondering why Fujitsu made a piece of software for UK post office that Japan Post doesn't use. Good question. As I understand, the answer to that question, Michael Peckett, is that TCL, it was originally made by a British company, and that was acquired by Fujitsu. It wasn't Japanese software. They weren't putting Japanese software into they weren't putting Fujitsu software into the post office. Fujitsu acquired a British company that was making the system and failed, and Fujitsu bought them out as a way of getting into the public sector business in the UK. So it was technically, it was a company that Fujitsu acquired called TCL that really screwed it up. But of course, Fujitsu, they own it. They buy it, they own it, including the problems. So yeah, indeed, that was a that's why the software is different, and probably thank heavens they're not using it here. Although of course the laws that apply are also different here. Interesting chart here, and I think this is sort of true. Literally the chain of events, and it is kind of connected. How all of this extra scrutiny on the LDP after the ties to the Moonies, to the Unification Church, and that Unification Church links to LDP, leading to someone killing Shinzo Abe, leading to all the scrutiny on the LDP, leading to people finding out about the funding parties, leading to basically now we've just had a bunch of the main LDP factions, including Kishida's own faction and Abe's former faction, just announcing that they're dissolving. They're not going to exist anymore after this. And this is these like fundamental units of the LDP. So it has followed on. I've always said, of course, the links between religious cults and politics, they should have been cleaned out years ago. The fact that it happened sort of in response, saying, well, maybe the assassin of Abe was right, felt kind of off, but it's something that kind of happens. It's pretty common that Japanese, police and society will look closely at the victims when there's a crime, thinking, well, they must have done something to deserve it, and treat it that way. And even when there kind of is, it still strikes me as wrong to let the terrorists win. But you could say there is a direct change, just like that picture, which is kind of disturbing. But at the same time, I mean, everything that fell because it was supposed to fall. So what can we do? Yoni, who is benefiting from the slush fund scandal, or is the media just doing their legitimate job? Good question. Thanks for flagging it as well for me there, Lara. Who's benefiting? Well, this all started with a university professor who was connected with who reported his findings to Akahata, the Japanese Communist Party newspaper, which is widely read in Japan. It's actually probably more people read the Communist Party newspaper than even vote for the communists. It's a relatively respected publication. So you could say there was a political bias of or interest from the perspective of the university professor who actually did the research that showed the gaps between the claimed accepted donations. Basically, the way that this all came to light was a professor, I believe in Nagoya or Kobe or something like that. He looked at the parties, he looked at the number of attendees, and he looked at the cost for attendance, and then he looked at the public declarations of how much money was actually declared as collected from the party versus the number of attendees and how much they paid by checking the information associated with the cost of attendance. And he just did the math and found the gaps between the declared amount and the amount that was collected. And he just gathered it up and said something's wrong here, and he filed it with the police. And the police said, yeah, looks like you found something. Kobe, thank you, Ken Cat. Oh, good to see you, Ken Cat. And nice to see you there. So in terms of how it came to light, it was genuinely like an individual professor who just simply took a whole bunch of public information and put it together. Journalists didn't find it, the tabloids didn't find it, but he found it, and he got it published in the Communist Party newspaper, and also filed it with prosecutors, who themselves, the prosecutors, you ask who benefits. One aspect of this is that the Abe was really heavy on, when prosecutors were looking at investigating him over the land deal for a right-wing private school that his wife was on the board of in Osaka, the Moritomo Gakuen scandal. He basically changed the appointment schedule of the head of the prosecutor's office to make sure that someone friendly who would not investigate him would remain in charge of the Tokyo prosecutor's office, which caused a lot of resentment. When he resigned, the person who he blocked from being promoted to being the chief Tokyo prosecutor became prosecutor. So you have a bunch of prosecutors who recognize the political interference with the office to prevent an investigation of Abe before. And the chief offender of this sort of practice was Abe's own political faction, and indeed Abe himself. And a lot of the politicians are saying, oh, this was all Abe and he's dead now, so we don't know. So the prosecutors have a direct interest in getting back at the Abe faction for basically interfering with the operation of literally interfering with their previous attempts at investigating the LDP and the Abe faction. You have a Communist Party affiliated professor who just found this public information and filed it with them. Both the newspaper, the Communist Party newspaper, of course, had an interest in publishing it, and the prosecutors had an interest in chasing it, which they've been doing. So that's just prima facie. That's just the facts of what happened. In terms of course, the media love it like a good story, but is the opposition benefiting from this? Well, not really. It's kind of funny. As always, the LDP vote falls, but the opposition vote doesn't go up. It's just the we hate everybody vote. None of the above just goes up. So the opposition, including the communists, haven't particularly benefited from this. I wouldn't say that the media is sort of benefiting from this. There probably is going to be, obviously, for bringing about a collapse of the LDP and just the opposition hopefully getting more votes by default, or by people just not being able to bring themselves to vote for the LDP anymore. That might be it. But it does look like, well, it wasn't so much the media doing their legitimate job because they didn't find it and it was all publicly available. Anyone the media could have. It was the prosecutors and this professor who found it. But since then, yeah, it just looks like the media's just picked it up and followed it, and it's just been running its natural sort of course. But there you go. Hey, Eddie, it's amazing to you that with all the problems the LDP is having lately, the CDP is not able to gain any momentum. It is amazing, right? That's just how bad the CDP is. And people still are bitter about the CDP from 2009 to 2012, just how incredibly bad they were. And yeah, and I was sort of like, still give them a chance, let them be bad. At least they're not the LDP. I was very much in that school, and I still kind of am. I don't vote, obviously. I'm not a Japanese citizen. Permanent residents can't vote in Japan. But I'm of the school that anyone's better than the LDP, pretty much. But the CDP, honestly, if they just never said or did anything, they would probably get elected. But whenever they do say something, it's stupid and bad. So indeed, it's actually there's a movie, a Richard Pryor movie called Brewster's Millions, where he's like given in 1975 or something, he's given $20 million and told to spend it within 2 weeks. And if he did, he'd get like $100 million or something like that. Is the plot of the movie, and basically he learns to hate money by being miserable, trying to get rid of money. It's a great movie, but it feels to me like exactly like the CDP is trying to like lose on purpose. It's like they're getting paid more if they lose or something. I don't know how they manage to do it, but they do it. So yeah. Yeah, the conspiracy theorists were kind of right indeed. Does Japan make movies about current Japanese politics? Not really. Occasionally there's some Japanese like dramas and TV shows which touch on it, but yeah, if you're going to commit a crime, be smart about it. Don't be stupid, says Aaron. That's good life advice. 8 minutes left, says Aaron. Yes, we're gonna do the live DJ stream after this, so I will wrap it up soon. Time has flown by. Well, glad that you find it that hopefully you're talking to me. But it's only bad if you're caught, right? I don't think that's how you should look at it, Mr. Cordy Chap, but this isn't an ethics class today. But certainly there are people who believe that you should be arrested, that stupidity itself should be criminally punishable, and when I'm feeling uncharitable, I sometimes think that myself. So yeah. Speaking of being stupid, my streak on Wordle was broken this week. I was extremely frustrated and angry. Oh, this was funny. Did people hear about the story that there was a Colombian lady claimed to have been one of the key animators on Miyazaki's latest film, and apparently got a whole bunch of media attention and interviews and so on. And Colombian news media, it turned out she just made it all up completely, and everyone believed her. So yeah, that's kind of a funny thing. There's a good Netflix special sort of movie material. If you ever want to know how to dress like a yakuza, he's actually like a kabuki actor and like a famous actor, but yeah, that's how you dress like a gangster. People in kabuki, you walk around, you see people who look like that with the done up eyebrows and the full body tracksuits and stuff like that. Basically, looks like kind of a Japanese version of a Russian tourist. Crit Rankin, criticism accepted. Yeah, maybe I should withdraw the comment. Yeah, anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We've got a few more minutes left. Thank you for keeping me company. Like I was saying, I've set up another live stream where I'm going to do what I did last week. I've actually set up the camera and everything to be better. And I had so much fun. Like, you know how I've been doing music at the end of the show lately? I've set up so that I've got kind of proficient now using this DJay software on my iPad, and it's kind of fun. So I'm going to take requests. If you want me to play specific tracks or types of tracks or whatever, I will take those requests. But oh yeah, Johnny Somali, he was sent home, but he was given like basically a $1,400 fine, 200,000 yen. I think he was deported. I think it was he was still had a criminal conviction. Was he deported though? Actually, I think he was. I honestly don't care, and I don't care to give him any more time. But yeah. So yeah, the style. Well, that's how. So yeah, I've separated the music stream just basically because you get all kinds of copyright stuff all over it. So everybody, I'm going to post the link right now to the other stream. so that you can come and join me over there. And if you want to hear music or have background or whatever, come check it out. And if you're not, then you're cool. Let me grab the link. I'm gonna copy, boom. So I'm going to wrap up this. Thank you for keeping me company. Peace as always. And I'll be starting up the DJ thread, the after party thread, which I'm going to make a regular thing. And I've got lots of tracks and whatever. So keep me company. Listen to some tunes while you're making your breakfast or doing whatever. And slap on the wrist, indeed. Defunct channel name. Good to see you. Get work in the morning. Have fun indeed. Got work in the morning. Sergeant Bilko, definitely go grab coffee and come and join me. And have a good week, everybody. Remember, stay safe. Remember, you can follow me on Twitter and all of that. I'm looking forward, not this week, but next week, to having Victor come up to Tokyo and watching Jimmy Carr with him together. So that'll be cool. So yeah, hang around and check the link that I just posted for the after party. And I'll see you later. The after party. I'll see you later. Boom. Peace. Any stream. Starting a new stream in just a second. So follow the link.